everyone, welcome back. If you're new, I'm Periwinkle Jellyfish, and I'm a silly little person that draws silly little characters and dreamscapes. Today, I'm going to be drawing one of my dreamy dreamscapes because I suddenly had inspiration for what to draw, and I decided to do it. And I wanted to get it onto a tablet or paper, Clip Studio Paint, before the idea was lost to me. So for this, I wanted this character to be scaling down an stairs. Where did I get escalator from? Random floaty stairs in the middle of space, and I just thought it would be really fun to draw a character going down this, but I also realized how tricky it is to make this look like she's actually going downstairs. When you're animating this or when you're animating this or making a movie, it's usually pretty easy to convey that someone is going down the stairs because you can see they are going down or up. I've never animated before, but I do know a little bit about it. But when it comes to just drawing straight up images, it can be a little bit more tricky to convey that, so you have to get a little bit creative. So, to answer this problem, we will see it in a minute once I've started drawing the clothes. I'm working on the hands, and I wanted them to be extended outwards because I imagine that she's somewhat of an extrovert. And, she's just, viewing everything that's going on around her. You'll see the absolute chaos in a minute. I gave her some eyes because they're fairly important and people kind of need those. I had her hair covering a little bit of her eyes because I imagine that even though she's somewhat extroverted and she likes people, she's also somewhat reserved and serene and doesn't open up very easily as well. But of course, she still does like social interaction. She just also needs a little bit of time to herself, so maybe she's an ambivert, I don't know. I decided to have her hair very long and flowing, and now that we're on to the clothes, I can show you what I did to solve the pesky little problem of how to make it look like she's scaling down the stairs. Have a very long dress that's covering most of her legs so that you kind of just have to figure it out yourself. I adjusted the dress a little bit, and I decided to have these floofy, see-through parts of it as well, and some gloves, because who doesn't like gloves? Now I've added some earrings that are just pretty little gemstones. I thought about adding a crown because she seems very regal, but in the end I opted against it. I wanted the background to be very spacey and galaxy-like, but I realized that there wasn't really enough randomness in here, so I was like, okay, I need to add something random. I thought, what if I make a planet, but it's evil? Like Planetomic Evil Man. But I realized that doesn't work too well, so I decided to scrap the idea and go for something more spacey and kind of work my way around from there. So we made a normal planet that isn't evil, hopefully, and now I'm just playing around with the glitter tool because I hadn't really played around with it much before, and I wanted to see how it worked. I decided to have just a random musical note that's just floating around because it's there, it's having a good time. Now we have a little UFO, and there is a little duck, and it has a flower hat because I thought that would be stinking adorable. Okay, now we are working on the next level of randomness because I felt like this still was a little bit spacey and serene and not spacey and insane like I was aiming for. So I decided, let's have a severed hand just floating around up there, and it is moving in very weird ways and contorting in ways that aren't normal. Because I want this to be beautiful, but also very crazy and insane. So I decided to make this the weirdest hand I possibly can, because I can do that. So I drew the hand of insanity, as I'm calling it, and now we're moving on to doing the line art. As a little update on how I've been doing lately, I've been playing a lot of Pokopia because it just came out, and I absolutely love Pokemon, and I like to play Animal Crossing, so these two things combined together is amazing, and I love the game so much. So it's been occupying a lot of my time, and I've just been spending a lot of time playing it. Anyway, moving on to actually the drawing, I'm working on the hair, trying to make it just flowing and kind of giving it a mind of its own because I thought that would be really nice. I'm now coloring in that gemstone earring, and now we're moving on to the dress. I thought that adding a long flowing dress might be really nice and might add to the strange aesthetic that I'm going for. I added those little gloves, and now we're moving on to the rest of the skirt. So I'm adding that slit so that you can kind of see part of her leg, and I decided to add some heels or stilettos. And now we're working on the eye. Once we're done with this, we can move on to the rest of the background. Because the background is fairly important, and while I want attention to be drawn to her, I also want the majority of it to be, not the majority, I want the attention to be 50-50, so I have to figure out how to make things stand out and also blend into the background as well, while also making things insane and crazy. It's a fine line that I am still learning how to walk around. So now we're moving on to the Hand of Insanity. This might be one of my favorite parts just because of how weird it is. Look at all those little fingers. They're probably not okay, but oh well. Now we're moving on to coloring. I wanted to go for a more muted color palette for the girl, and then something that's a bit more dark but saturated for the background. I thought this way everything could be a little bit more standouty and a little bit different from each other. I'm speeding this part up by quite a lot because this was a pretty time consuming. So, yeah. Usually I don't use muted colors. Usually I'm more drawn to things that are very vibrant and colorful and fun. But I thought that this would just be a good way to, step a little bit outside of my comfort zone. So we're adding the hair streakies, one of my favorite parts of my character design because it's kind of like my signature. Now I'm moving on to, not moving on to anything, I'm just doing this. Okay, now we are actually moving on to coloring in the dress. I wanted to give her a deep blue, and I wanted to have rhinestones near the bottom that are getting less and less frequent the higher up we go. And I also thought it might be nice to give it a glowy effect, so I added a little bit of this. Took me a few minutes, but in my opinion, it was worth it. Now we're moving on to coloring in the little see-through parts of the sleeves because I thought this would be a really fun thing to add. Now we are going to move on to the next sleeve, and then we can work on the gloves. So, we're going to lower the opacity on the sleeves to really give that vibe of being see-through. We color in the gloves, and now we move on to the skin tone. So we just got to quickly cover or color everything in. And now just a quick move on to the earrings. I decided to make the top a stud instead of just a rhinestone or gemstone like I was planning at first. And then I just added two little pretty gems at the bottom. Now I made the stiletto or shoe the same color as the gold rhinestone, and I made her eyes a very bright color because I thought it would contrast with the rest of her outfit and design, which has darker colors with it. Now we're moving on to the background. I decided to use fairly bright colors for the steps because I thought that would make it stand out a little bit. Meanwhile, I wanted the spacey abyss to be a little bit darker with some bright accents. So now I'm adding stars with the sparkle tool. It's going to be a little bit hard to see at first, but you can see it's getting a little bit more apparent. Now we're adding some shiny, shiny stars, and now we can move on to coloring the Hand of Insanity. So we're just going to color this in really, really quick. And I'm trying my best not to color outside the lines too much, but it's kind of inevitable. Obviously, this hand is contorting in just the most random and unnatural ways possible. Obviously, this kind of helps convey that everything that she's seeing right now isn't real, and it's all a dream. Ooh. So yeah, the little hand of insanity from the dream Maybe he will appear in yours. I don't know. Now we are moving on to the UFO with the little duck or a duckling with a little flower on its hat, because I thought that would be really cute, and I love when people have ducklings and they put little flowers on their heads like cats. It's so cute. Okay, back on track. I'm adding a pink flower, and then just a simple green stem. Some random colors on the lights for the UFO, because every UFO must have lights. Now I'm moving on to the windshield or space shield. Is there any wind in space? I don't know. Let's move on to the little music note. I made it golden and shiny. And then we move on to the hopefully not evil planet that is sitting there. So I'm just quickly coloring it in and just, getting that colored in a nice simple green so that it looks a little bit grounded and a little bit more realistic. So there's something that's a little bit not insane, things that are crazy, and then things that are just kind of there and pretty. Now I'm coloring in over everything else, coloring over my lines as a part of rendering. This is a fairly simple process. I just need to color over everything and make sure some things are the right color. It's a little bit hard to explain, but now I'm moving on to rendering the hand of insanity, the duckling, and the steps, the music note, and the little earth. So here is our finished drawing. I'm really happy with how this turned out, and it's not perfect, but nothing is ever going to turn out the way I picture it in my head. That's just kind of how life works, but oh well. Overall, I think it's a really nice drawing, and thank you so much for watching this video through to the end. Please let me know in the comments if you want to see more of this character, and if you have any name ideas for her, then please let me know. Speaking of names, thank you to one of my viewers for suggesting the name Ellie for our patchwork character. I love all the names you all suggested, but I think Ellie works best. So I believe that's all. I will see you in another video, and that's it. Bye!